After what I've just told you and what I've just showed you and you've seen, if you could still believe that Angela McArdle, who is that her influence would have moved the needle on this, we don't even need to have a conversation, right? It doesn't even make any sense.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 358. I'm talking to Vin Armani, who has been involved in the Bitcoin space for a while. We're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to talk about the effort to get Ross Ulbricht free. Ross was freed on the second or third day of Trump's administration, so that's great news. Ross knows Lynn and knows Lynn Ulbricht, who's Ross's mother, and I have met Lynn on several occasions, but I've not met Ross. And of course, I live in Austin, so Ross, I know he has some roots here. He was arrested in Austin, and I think he went to Westlake High School, so that's another thing, which I guess he's after Drew Brees, he's probably Westlake's most famous alum. So, but unless there's some others out there, but yeah. So, how are you, Vin?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. It's an important conversation.
It is. First of all, Ben, I do want to know, how did you get into the Bitcoin space?
Well, that's interesting because it is actually kind of it has a relationship to why Ross's case is significant. So I think I got my first Bitcoin in 2012, the end of 2012, and so like a lot of people at that time, my interest was primarily around sort of alternative technologies, particularly for communications, for finance, these types of things. Just because this is the time of, it's post 9/11. We're coming out of like a decade of the Patriot Act. We've got the Snowden stuff. We've got the WikiLeaks stuff. We've got all this kind of stuff happening. And my background is as a software developer. And at the time, as some people will know, so basically from 2010 until 2016, I was the star of a show on Showtime called Gigolos that was set in Vegas and was ostensibly about, well, I guess what people would call the sex industry. And so between kind of the people that I knew in that industry and also my friends and clientele and these sorts of things, I knew lots of people who, for various different reasons, whether they were celebrities or whether they were well-connected in other ways, who were interested in having their conversations not ever be public, right? And having payments that they made be relatively obscure or anonymous. And so, cash is, of course, king. I was living in Las Vegas, but I started exploring Tor. And through looking at that, which was a relatively new technology, I probably started looking at that around 2011. And I actually saw the Silk Road at that time. So I never bought anything on it, but I went on it. I said, whoa, this is super interesting. And it was actually seeing Silk Road. I had heard about Bitcoin just as a developer, I think maybe in some Wired magazine stuff or whatever. But never thought much about it. But then it was actually going on Silk Road that I was like, wow, all of this is in this Bitcoin thing. Let me download the wallet, check that out. But I think even after that, it was still about a year until I was able to find somebody who actually ran a series of Tor nodes, come to find out, who was a software developer in Vegas and introduced me to that community. I bought my first Bitcoin. And then it was kind of off to the races from then. I bought it at $15 in 2012, sold in 2013 at the end of 2013. So basically sold everything I was holding for when it was at 1,000, so 60x. And then it was from there that I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And I started developing and developed like my first applications and stuff in about 2014.
Okay, so you've been building applications for the Bitcoin space. That's cool. So you understand how it works under the hood. Then, I do want to point out, assume that the audience here knows nothing about this. So we might use some terms.
I always do.
I'll probably, try to be defining some terms here. So you were developing so then you moved on. So how, and Ross was arrested in what, 2012, I think, or it was
I think it was actually 2013 that he was arrested. He was sentenced in
2013.
2015.
Yes.
Yeah, he was sentenced in 2015. I mean, in terms of moving on, I've never moved on. I'm still a full-time developer in the crypto space. I mean, that's what I do for a living. So from 2014 to now, that's been my profession. And I maintain a Bitcoin full node for the on the eCash network. I've done a lot of crypto projects, and this is what I do all day, every day.
Yeah, and so he was arrested in 2013. It was a hidden service on the Tor network, and of course he used that name Dread Pirate Roberts, and which was
that's right,
character from The Princess Bride, and then he got in and was sentenced to double life in 40 years. So basically he wasn't going to get out, at least. So, and of course, as soon as Ross got arrested, the Free Ross movement began, right? I mean, who was leading that at the time?
I don't know that it was as soon as he got arrested. Certainly by the time, I think it was through his case that it started. Lynn Ulbricht, his mother, was always the spearhead of that. Mm-hmm. I knew about it. I wasn't heavily involved. My business partners at the time when I first met Lynn, which was October 2016, because she was literally the first guest on the Vin Armani show on my podcast when I started it. My business partners at the time were running activistpost.com, which was blowing up at that time, and they were covering a lot of that stuff. And they had also been, they're Bitcoin users. They had been on Silk Road, and they had done maybe the most stories about Ross at that time. And I don't know that even October 2016, Free Ross, I could say, wasn't really a movement. I think when I had that first interview with Lynn, and people could go check it out, it's still on YouTube, October maybe 20th, 2016, she was still really kind of fresh in terms of educating people, because, I mean, he hadn't even been locked up for 2 years at that point. And so, she was out fundraising, sort of getting a legal team around, trying to help with his appeal at that point. So yeah, I mean, I think in terms of it being a movement, I don't think anybody, outside of it was even fringe for libertarians, outside of a fringe libertarian group, I would say it wasn't really until the end of 2020 that it was really a movement. But certainly, I mean, the first time I spoke at a conference where Lynn was there and met her in person was February 2017 in Anarchapulco. Yeah. And at that conference, I mean, unfortunately, I had to speak opposite her in another room. And luckily, I had any audience at all, because everybody was in that room, and we could hear the cheering from, I think there's even a video of my talk up where you could hear the cheering coming from the other room for her. So I think probably by that time within libertarian and crypto circles, and that's a heavy, that Acapulco crew is really heavy into crypto, Jeff Berwick and all that. So I think by that time it was pretty big in that scene, but in the overall libertarian sphere, probably not really that big till 2020.
Yeah, Anarchapulco was as much of a crypto conference as it was a libertarian or anarchist conference. Yeah, it was
for sure.
They were all in on that stuff. Yeah, that was 2017. That was I made it in 2018, so I didn't get there in 2017. Yeah. I did do a show with Avi Esther once, who was Nathan Freeman's assistant. But there were some great people. I guess you never went back to Anarchapulco then. So yeah.
No, I did. I went back. Yeah, I think I believe 2019. I'm trying to think. I think I did 2019 because then I also did the Anarcho Vegas conference as well, which was like a spinoff that year.
Yeah, they've had a few spinoffs. I don't know what's going on. They kind of, after the coronavirus nonsense kind of hurt it. That hurt a lot of cons, unfortunately. But yeah,
for sure.
but anyway, so that was they were definitely talking about Ross at that conference. So what kind of work was being done to get Ross out? I mean, and what were you also seeing in the crypto space? I mean, were you seeing some changes there too? Because it seems like it definitely has evolved since that time too.
Oh, and I think that's actually kind of the big thing to talk about. I mean, probably, I don't know how early I was saying it privately, but certainly publicly by 2018, looking at how things were shaping up, I was drawing comparisons between Ross Ulbricht and Nelson Mandela. And that really actually pissed off a lot of like South African people that I know, because they're like, oh, what are you talking about? Ross is, nonviolent. He's not a terrorist. Mandela was a terrorist. And I was like, yeah, that's not actually what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, so first, seeing where Bitcoin was going and seeing that the adoption was getting into institutions, and we are seeing more powerful people talk about it, and seeing that there was a generation that was coming into power that was all about it. By that time, 2018, I was like, you know what's going to happen? Ross is going to be free someday. And that is going to be kind of a bellwether moment. Like, it'll be one of those touch points where we'll know that kind of Bitcoin has won and it's moved into another phase. It's mainstreamed. And that's what I meant by Nelson Mandela, was like, when Mandela was free, that was basically the touchstone where you're like, they freed Mandela, apartheid's over. It's like, once Mandela was free, you could be like, okay, this is permanent, apartheid's over. And I saw that with the kind of Bitcoin apartheid that was happening, because even the judge in Ross's case, Judge Forrest, when she sentenced him, she said, you could go and read it, right? You can read the transcript. She says, I am giving you this sentence to serve as an example. And it wasn't an example about drugs or anything like that. It was an example about creating financial systems that enable people to do things outside of the banking system. That's why they moved his case to New York, right? And Schumer was a part of doing that, and they handpicked the judge. It was all about the banks seeing a threat and wanting to make an example. So he was always very much a political prisoner, and what he symbolized was basically, what's going to be the next kind of financial paradigm. And what does it mean for people in terms of their ability to, interact with one another on a global scale, free from the banks? And so I said, when he's free, it'll basically be like, that will be part of a great large thing where Bitcoin will have won. And that's what this year is shaping up to look like, really. That's the big narrative of this year.
That's true. So what exactly do you think it means that Bitcoin has won? Because I still go out to Starbucks. I can't buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin. So
right. Very good. So when I say Bitcoin, I'm not talking about BTC. Never am I talking about that. Never am I talking about the go and buy this particular token. I'm talking about Bitcoin, the protocol, writ large, and it's the first, financial peer-to-peer financial blockchain. So like the creator of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, he was a Bitcoin developer. It all starts with Bitcoin.
Yes, he was.
Bitcoin as a movement, right? And so Bitcoin symbolizes, and it's in the first, it's the first sentence of the white paper, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow any two willing parties to transact online without going through a financial institution. And so it's the changing of a paradigm of the disintermediation of financial institutions. And if you think about what is the power structures of the world, when we talk about the families that run the world and all of this, they're the ones behind the financial institutions, right? And so it represents such a huge change that this technology is available to the people and that the people can use it. Now, obviously, the state is going to use it, and you have this kind of Orwellian high, middle, and low. And so right now, the middle is using those rails to become the high and to displace the high. And Trump and Thiel and Musk and all of them represent the middle that has money, right? The bourgeoisie taking over the state. And the state is and has been for 100 over 100 years now, has been exclusively run by the financial institutions and the powers that be in charge of those.
That is true. So yeah, and you think that Bitcoin is now allied with the financial institutions, because at the time when Bitcoin started, the goal was to replace the financial institutions and not necessarily ally with them.
Well, Bitcoin is becoming the rails on which the new financial institutions will run. Right. So
Okay.
this is really what, it's not to say that a financial institution can't use a blockchain. Absolutely it can. But what Satoshi was writing about was that he fundamentally, and I just tell people, read the introduction to the white paper. It's clearly one of the most important documents ever written, right? Because it's changing the world in big ways. The fact that we're even having a conversation about this person that Trump pardoned, and it's all about Bitcoin political prisoner, and it's like, hey, maybe go just read the 2 paragraphs of the introduction to the Bitcoin white paper. Maybe this might be something that you want to do. It'll take you 5 minutes and it's non-technical and anybody can understand it, right? So yeah, basically what he's talking about there is he's just saying that the system as it existed, that legacy system, had what Satoshi calls in the introduction, costs and payment uncertainties that made it less than optimal for peer-to-peer transactions between people, and that he had a system that was more optimal, and it didn't have the costs and payment uncertainties, meaning it's cheaper to do it and it's less risky to do it. And so whoever was in control of the financial institutions that were using this as their rails, or the players who use this as their rails, would necessarily disrupt and displace the financial institutions. And that's what the powers that be saw Ross as the prototype of. They saw what was coming for them, and that's why he had to go away for 2 life sentences. That's what it was about.
Yeah. So being at Anarchapulco, you obviously met some other people there. Certainly, Mr. Roger Ver was there. I mean, what's been your interactions with him, and what was he doing to try to free Ross?
Well, Roger is a personal friend of mine. I was an executive at Bitcoin.com. So, I mean, I know Roger very well. We communicate to this day. Probably the last back and forth that we had was maybe 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? By text. So he was, as far as I can tell, he was the biggest financial contributor to the Free Ross movement. Always had been. So he did it relatively anonymously, but Ross Ulbricht, I can't remember a time when I saw Roger speak in public about Bitcoin that he did not mention Ross Ulbricht. I cannot remember a time.
That's wild.
So Ross's case was always has been front of mind for Roger. And if there's any one person who had an outsized impact, I think, on the trajectory of Ross's case, it's Roger Ver. And by the way, not just Ross's case, I saw him fund a lot of people's cases in crypto, a lot, to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars to defend them and their actions. So they call him Bitcoin Jesus for a reason. Roger and I have disagreed on certain things over the years, but the one thing that I have to say is that he is a principled individual who has done a lot for a lot of people, myself and my family included.
Yeah, I always hear that about. Yeah, I've heard Sterling Lujan said the same thing about him, that he's done. That sure. Roger's done a lot for a lot of people. That raises the question of, if they pardon Ross, why hasn't Roger been pardoned, or say Ian Freeman or some of the people in New Hampshire? I mean, there's still a lot of crypto court cases going on right now.
Yes. And that goes exactly to the question of, well, why did Trump pardon Ross in the first place? Right. Because it's important to understand that Trump had an opportunity, a big opportunity, to pardon Ross on his way out in 2020.
Yeah.
So at that time, Ross's case had gone all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they had refused to hear it, if my memory serves correctly. Either way, obviously, it didn't go through in the Supreme Court, and he was relegated too at that point. I remember sitting with Lynn in late 2019 in New Hampshire at Liberty Forum, having breakfast with her, and we were talking about that this was going on, and she was saying, okay, well, the last thing we have is Trump. So that year they put on a big push, and much of it again funded by Roger. I remember they got Ross's sort of story up on billboards in Times Square and some other places in New York, specifically again targeting Trump and the Trump organization. They did a change.org petition, and that got over 300,000 signatures by December 2020. And in December 2020, there was a big push, and I know Charlie Kirk was tweeting about it, and other people on the right who were close to Bernard Kerik and other people who were close to Trump. And I know for a fact, Lynn had told me that Trump was aware. He was aware, and that my understanding was that he was considering pardoning Ross, and that there was a real hope, I think, from a lot of people. Because, I mean, Thomas Massey, Justin Amash, like a whole bunch of people were like, this is a travesty, Trump, pardon him. And he didn't pardon him. He didn't pardon him. You know, and clearly between 2020 and 2025, nothing changed with Ross's case, right? The case was done. If it was a travesty and worthy of a pardon in 2025, it was a travesty and worthy of a pardon in 2020. And so then you have to ask, well, why didn't he pardon him? And I think the easy explanation is that the pardon, or at least the promise of the pardon, if you look at how it built up and what changed over the course of those 5 years, what changed is that Bitcoin had mainstreamed and become basically institutionalized, and that there were a significant number of newly minted within that last 5 years, crypto billionaires and multimillionaires and billionaires who had major skin in the game when it came to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I mean, we're talking about obviously Elon Musk, right? But Peter Thiel, who's the big money behind, he was the chair of the transition team in the first Trump administration. People don't know that. But he, I mean, JD Vance is a Peter Thiel creation. Yes. And Peter Thiel's founders fund in 2023 got back into Bitcoin. They had been in Bitcoin since 2014 to the tune of maybe $20 million. And they got out, I think, in 2022. In 2023, they bought back in with a $100 million tranche, right, into Bitcoin and Ethereum. So, you got the guy who's got this massive investment, and it was very important so he was able to do two things. So one, he was able to make this huge virtue signal. And if you look at his donations in crypto, he was taking crypto. If you look at his donations in crypto alone, never mind the cash coming from the people who had crypto investments, right? It's massive. To the point where the Harris campaign started to take donations in take campaign donations in crypto too, right? After that. But there's an even more important person, and that is Howard Lutnick. He's the most important person. Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is our L-U-T-N-I-C-K.
Secretary of Commerce, yes.
Secretary of Commerce. But he was the co-chair of Trump's transition team, and Linda McMahon was the other one. Linda McMahon was in charge of creating the narrative and the kayfabe. So she basically created all the executive orders to begin the narrative of Trump, the storyline, because it's a WWE storyline. And then
Linda McMahon being Vince's daughter, I believe. Yeah.
No, she's his wife.
Oh,
she's Vince McMahon's wife. the former CEO of WWE. She's the mother of Stephanie McMahon, and obviously the mother-in-law of Triple H, who was just at the White House recently, and I think was named some sort of fitness thing by Trump.
Howard Lutnick's looking.
Yes, Howard's role was Howard Lutnick was the HR, and he picked all of Trump's appointees. So he picked Trump's cabinet. Howard Lutnick did. Right, including David Sachs, the crypto czar. Who's in the PayPal mafia, former business partners with obviously Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all those guys, and heavily invested in crypto.
Lots of people in the PayPal mafia.
Right, but
is that how do you spell
what's
Sachs?
important about Howard?
Or
I believe it is SACKS. I always get it wrong. Okay. David Sachs.
David Sachs. Sachs is a sack of groceries or a sack of potato chips.
Yes, correct.
Or with an S, okay. Or like Sachs potato chips.
The reason, yes.
And he's also from South Africa too, just like Musk is. Yeah.
And Thiel.
Yeah,
Thiel was raised a portion of his life in South Africa as well.
Oh wow, yeah. Yeah, I certainly heard some things about the PayPal mafia. I wasn't sure what hand they had into it, but yeah. Because some people say the PayPal.
What do you mean? What hand they have into it? They're the entire Trump administration.
Yeah, they are. That's true. Yeah.
But this goes back to the thing where I was talking about the high, the middle, and the low, right?
Yes.
Where the middle is always wanting to take over the high. Well, PayPal has always been the middle when it comes to financial institutions.
Yeah.
They're a huge financial institution that's not a bank, and they've always been cut out outside of the banks. But they've always realized that financial institutions are the top. And so let me tell you about Howard Lutnick, because he's the most important person when it comes to crypto and why Ross had to be freed from a political standpoint. Howard Lutnick is the same Bitcoin conference where Trump announced he was going to free Ross. Howard Lutnick also spoke. You can look up Lutnick Bitcoin conference on YouTube and you will see Howard Lutnick's speech. Howard Lutnick is important because Howard Lutnick, before he was the Secretary of Commerce for, 30 years, was the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, which is a major financial house. Cantor Fitzgerald, since 2023, has been the banker for Tether, USDT, which is the biggest stablecoin company in the world. He developed Tether's investment strategy. That investment strategy is taking all of their billions, hundreds of billions in reserves and buying U.S. treasuries. And so Howard Lutnick's entire role here is to facilitate the move onto crypto rails and the move to stable coins, which will put all of these guys in charge of basically the world. It will put them in charge of the U.S. financial system. And so one of the things to understand about Tether and why the Trumps and all of them would be interested is Tether is the most profitable financial institution, like per employee. So Tether did $13 billion by just using Howard Lutnick is their banker, using his strategy. Last year, they did $13 billion in profit, not revenue, profit. And they had under 200 employees.
Wow. Yeah. And
they did not have a physical office.
Wow. That's wild. Yeah. Great ROI.
Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean? So you look at that, right? You're the Secretary of Commerce. You're doing this business. It's the most profitable, wildest, cheapest to run business, the greatest ROI of any business in history, in the history of the world. And you are their banker, and you get to choose the cabinet of the president.
Wow.
And then a few months later, the Congress passes a stablecoin bill that Trump signs within 24 hours to legalize. And by the way, Tether's CEO, Paolo Arduino, was at the signing. To legalize stablecoins and to make them the new backbone of the U.S. Dollar.
Yeah, and just to clarify for everybody, when we say Tether is is a cryptocurrency that's pegged to the U.S. dollar, so it's the token is worth $1. There's also USDC. There are also currencies pegged to the euro, pegged to the Japanese yen, pegged to the Swiss franc, pegged to. You can peg it. You can peg.
Let's talk about
what's. Explain that for the listeners.
Let's talk about what's. Sure. Let's talk about what's maybe the most important, and this will be easy for the listeners to understand. Let's talk about what's maybe the most important stablecoin of them all, from a political standpoint and from our conversation standpoint.
Yes.
And that stablecoin is USD1. Do you know USD1?
No.
Yeah, USD1 is the stablecoin of World Liberty Financial. Do you know what World Liberty Financial is?
No.
Look up World Liberty Financial and then go and look at their team page. If you want to understand everything that's going on in the world right now, that's the rabbit hole on which you start.
Where DeFi meets TradFi. If you want to
understand where DeFi meets TradFi, go look at that team page. Go find that team page. About us or whatever. Okay.
Meet our team.
Scroll down to the team.
Oh,
who's the team?
Four Trumps.
Oh my goodness.
Chase Harris.
Wait, which Trumps? Which Trumps?
Donald, Eric, Donald Jr., Barron.
Oh. Who else is on there that's important geopolitically? One of the most important political figures in the world at the moment. You see somebody?
Chase Harrow, Zach Folkman, Stephen Witkoff.
Yeah. Who's that? Who's that? Wait, who's that?
Stephen Witkoff.
Who's Stephen Witkoff? Who is that? What does he do? I think I've heard his name.
Special envoy to the Middle East and special envoy for peace missions.
He is the one negotiating with Vladimir Putin. Oh. He is the U.S.'s Steve Witkoff.
Yes, Witkoff. Yes.
Okay.
Several
Witkoffs. Donald Trump. Well, yeah, those are his sons.
Yes, it's definitely a family affair.
So the guy who is negotiating about sanctions and trade deals and all of that, him and his boys are in a stablecoin business with Trump and his boys.
Yeah.
And Trump just signed stablecoin legislation that's going to enable their company to basically have the digital dollar that everyone in the world is using, and for them to be able to deny licenses to anyone that they don't want to have it. This is the new Rothschilds. And this is all running on crypto rails. This is Bitcoin winning. This is what Bitcoin winning looks like. Yeah, and that's why they had to free Ross, because Ross represented Bitcoin as a criminal activity. Ross represented they could not have a situation where people would be able to say, "Oh, but that guy, look at this, Bitcoin's bad, Bitcoin's evil, crypto is for criminals." No, they had to be like, crypto's not a criminal thing. We're in it. We have a $1 billion crypto business.
Yeah. So
that's what's happening, my brother.
So is he going to try to get Putin to use Tether as well, or what's going on there?
Yeah, Putin wants to use Tether. They already use Tether in Russia. They use it for they've been using it for cross-border trades between China and Russia for like 7-8 years.
Wow.
Look up Tether border Russia China. Go ahead and Google that. You'll see stories about it. There are whole entire towns on the Russian border with China where all that's in the town is exchanges of rubles to places you go to exchange Tether for rubles.
Yes, and yeah, that's what looks like. Yeah, and of course, Russia and China share a pretty long border too. Yeah, so
Yep. It's what's enabling the cross-border trade. They're also, now that there's sanctions on banks, and there can be like what do they call them? Like, I forget, ancillary sanctions against
yes,
Chinese banks doing business with Russia. Now the Russian merchants and the Chinese um, banks have started doing their payments in Tether.
and so Putin is. This is one area that's true though. Putin is basically he's completely bypassed all of these sanctions since the invasion of Ukraine. I mean, he's just kind of laughing about them, and the only thing it's done is it's hurt these stupid idiots in Europe who just are. This is probably nothing else going to. The EU is not in this at all. I mean, it's kind of signaling the whole end of the EU and Western
they're
Europe.
done.
Yeah,
they're done.
Yeah, and they deserve to be done. They
done.
really, I've completely given up on that part of the world. It's just it's sad, but it's true. Because they made their energy cost hang higher by sanctioning Putin, but then Putin just goes to China. So, where do the other cryptos? Does this kind of shut out the other cryptos, or where does this take how does this impact the other cryptos? I mean, and do you think
this is basically this is so what you're looking at here is you're looking at basically like the that synthesis moment in any kind of technology or industry or any of these things where it kind of the application has been found and it kind of coalesces into like the thing, So for instance, let's talk about like the early days of the automobile. There's a great museum in Reno. It's actually Hera, the guy who started like Hera's casinos. He had it's his own personal car collection, but his car collection, he collected cars that were like one of a kind or like very unique kind of technological designs. And when you walk through, I think it's called the American Car Museum or the Car Museum of America. Really cool. If you're ever in Reno, anybody, or you go to Lake Tahoe, drive into Reno and go through this because it will blow your mind about the car. You knew nothing about the car, the history of the car. But when you start, you actually walk through it, and you walk through it in order of like the oldest cars that he had through. So you go like a timeline of history, and like the third car in there from the early 1800s is an electric vehicle. It's electric. There's batteries and it's electric, right? And then it's like there's boiler kind of steam style. There's like cars that you steered them with a rudder, like a boat rudder from the back because they hadn't figured out the steering wheel. And it's like what you start to see is that in the early days when they don't really know, we've got this thing, this idea, this concept, but we don't really know. It hasn't settled on a set of standards of like, how do we use it? How do we build it? What's the best way to do this? Right. And so Satoshi starts out the first sentence of the white paper, right? Before Bitcoin is even released, in the white paper, he says, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow any two willing parties to transact online without going through a financial institution. And it's like, oh, yeah. But the best way to do that would be with the global reserve currency. Like, what do you want to transact in? You want to any two willing parties, what's the most likely format that they want to transact in? The global reserve currency, the dollar. So it's like, wait a minute. So what are these rails for? Oh, they're the best way we know to move dollars. Now you've got your steering wheel. Now you've got your internal combustion engine. And now that's the only thing you're ever going to build on that platform. You never go back to the rudder. So all these other cryptos are the rudder. All these other cryptos are the early electric thing. These cryptos are the Stanley steamer. They're these experiments to see, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And the market finally coalesces. It took 10 years. Tether came out in 2014. And I remember even in 2018 saying, this is BS. Why would anybody use this? And I was in crypto. And I was like, why would anybody use this? But as it started to coalesce and you start to see it, you're like, oh, yeah, this is the only thing that people are going to use this for. right? And it's already happening in Venezuela. Venezuela has like $3 exchange rates. It's pretty crazy. You can look that up too. They've been talking a lot about it this year. And everybody in Venezuela, I have Venezuelan developer friends, everybody there uses Tether. Everybody. And they all use it through the Binance wallet. Every merchant in Venezuela accepts Tether. Every merchant. Right? So Tether has become the de facto currency of Venezuela.
That's wild. So, you think the other cryptos will just not be used for anything, or what? I mean, Monero,
that's it.
Bitcoin
Even
Cash.
BTC. Even BTC.
Yeah.
At best they'll be used as rails, but the only ones that will be, there's only a few that are good as rails. So like in terms of the Bcash in terms of the Bitcoin forks, eCash, that's what I've been working on. That one is the one that's best for rails, and we issue stable coins on that. We've been issuing stable coins on that since 2018 was the first stable coin issued on what was then Bitcoin Cash, now eCash. So yeah, they'll just be the rails for these tokens, and there'll probably be some other tokens. I mean, there'll probably be some yen ones and some euro ones, but their volume will be nothing compared to the dollar, just because they're not the global reserve currency.
Yeah. Do you think Tether is honest about what they have in reserve? I mean, if I wanted to get
100%.
an actual dollar, okay.
What 100%? Go, and actually, you should go and watch that Lutnick talk.
Yeah,
it's before the election, so he's giving you the preview. He's laying out the keys. He's revealing the method of what they're doing. And at the time, he's the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and he says even when he went to them, he said they had every penny. Cantor Fitzgerald made them show them every penny. He said they have every penny. They're fully backed.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, of course, that doesn't stop them from continuing to print more dollars. Yeah.
Well, they can only print them if they're fully backed, and now that's what the law, the U.S. law that they've said they're going to comply with as a foreign entity. That's what it entails. And I mean, Tether just announced that. So Nayib Bukele from El Salvador, they announced together that Tether is now moving there. Remember, I said they had no corporate headquarters. They've now moved there. They're headquartering there, and they're building a skyscraper, Tether Tower. And so basically El Salvador is going to be basically Tether. Because, I mean, you can't be a company that makes $13 billion in profit and go to El Salvador and not basically control the government. Right.
That's true. The question is, though, why do they need a building? I mean, that's often the sign of trouble, that when a company goes out and builds a big building.
Well, they need a building to display their power to the people.
Yeah.
The same reason that the same reason you build a Washington Monument, the same reason you build Trump Tower.
Well, yeah, but let's remember, one time the tallest building was once called the Sears Tower, and Sears doesn't even own that building anymore. So,
yeah, well, this isn't about building the tallest building, right? This is about building a symbol of their power.
True.
It's the same reason that if you're a king, you put giant statues up, right? It's the same reason to build any monument. It's a monument to your power. Yeah. Ozymandias, right? That the Shelley, right? The poem.
Yes, Percy Bysshe Shelley. Yes, my name is Ozymandias. Yes.
Yeah, Ozymandias. That's it. Well, they're building their Ozymandias
in El Salvador. Statue. Yeah. Well, yeah, El Salvador is a very interesting case. Trump has gotten very close to Bukele. It's So what do you think is going to be used? Do you think we'll ever get to a point though where we're using Bitcoin, or maybe we'll use Tether to buy a cup of coffee?
Just Tether.
Yeah.
Or it'll be a stable coin, right? It remains to be seen whether or not the Trump team is going to. They could stop Tether from coming into the U.S. market, and you could see that they have an incentive to do that because they themselves have a stable coin that's competing with Tether.
Yeah, and just to point out also, there's even Pax Gold. So if you want to buy a crypto that's pegged to the price of gold, you can buy Pax Gold. So this is not financial advice. This is not financial advice. Yeah, this is not financial advice. This is not legal advice. This is not tax advice. I just want to point that out too.
No. No.
So yeah, so this is all very interesting. So Trump was going to free Ross. You think maybe was making his mind up about freeing Ross, a while back. It sounds like, at least as soon as he got in with these people.
Well, yeah. Well, it's just politically expedient to do, right? Because he makes this move where he gets it just works on like 10 different levels. Freeing Ross is politically expedient for Donald Trump.
Yes.
He didn't do it when it was just the right move, but not politically expedient. He only did it when it was politically expedient. Now, mind you, I am so glad that Ross has been freed. I am so glad. And you got to give the devil his due. Like, thank you, Donald Trump, for doing that. But let's not say that it came from altruism. Let's not kid ourselves.
And was there any consideration that Biden might have pardoned him?
No. Oh no. I mean, the Democrats are fully in league with the establishment bank, with the old banking establishment. Yeah. Oh no. Absolutely not.
Okay. I thought it was a question worth asking. I mean, that's one thing. Biden could have pulled that as could have used that as a trump card, to foil. Yeah, I'll pardon Ross.
Oh, he absolutely could have. He absolutely could have. But no. The big banks are too tied in with the Democratic Party.
Okay, well, that's true. So so you think this? So you don't. Some people. One person. Who was the chair of the Libertarian Party National Committee wanted to claim, but you don't think Angela McArdle had anything to do with Ross being freed,
bro? Not in the slightest. Not in this. I'll put it to you in an even bigger, like, after what I've just told you and what I've just showed you and you've seen, if you could still believe that Angela McArdle, who is that her influence would have moved the needle on this, we don't even need to have a conversation, right? It doesn't even make any sense.
Well, there's still other people are going to think that, but there are other people, like Patrick Smith and some other people who talked about Ross being free. What do you think about what do you think is going to happen with the Ver case, the Roger Ver case?
Well, that's a more difficult one because it is not politically expedient for Donald Trump to step in on this one. There's no upside for him. It's just the right thing to do. The unfortunate part about Roger is Roger's not even any longer a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he renounced his citizenship, and Roger, I mean, God bless him. And I think like I said, he's principled as an anarchist libertarian.
Oh, yes.
But it doesn't exactly serve you well to have spent a decade talking about how the presidency itself is illegitimate and then to be asking for a pardon from a president.
Yeah,
I understand why you would, but it's not consistent.
Yeah, it's so. Has anybody ever? Is there any history of a country going after somebody for taxes 10 years after they renounce their citizenships? I mean, this is so over the top. It's something only America would do, I think.
Well, I mean,
so many countries.
There's a history of countries going after. He's a political dissident.
Yeah.
He's a political dissident who sent himself into exile.
Yeah.
Is there a history of countries going after political dissidents even 20, 30, 40 years later? Of course there is.
Yeah.
Since time immemorial.
Yeah.
This is the risk that you run when you're a political dissident.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying there are very few countries that try to most countries don't even tax their citizens abroad. I mean, you could be you could be a French person and come and make all this money in America, and France wouldn't care. It's so over the top. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did want to ask you. I think you're the first person I've ever had on here who lives in a territory. You live in the Northern Marianas Islands, which is also near Guam. Mm-hmm. What's life like as a U.S. citizen living in a territory?
Well, everybody here is a U.S. citizen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Everybody's a U.S. citizen.
If you're born here, you're a U.S. citizen. The second part is this isn't a territory.
Okay.
So Northern Mariana Islands is basically, when people talk about Ancapistan, this is basically Ancapistan.
Okay.
So in 1975, the people of the Northern Mariana Islands entered into a contract with the United States. It's basically a lease for some land. This document is called the Covenant to establish a Commonwealth in political union with the United States. It's a long title, but if you just look up the Covenant, Mariana Islands, you will get it. And that is the law of the land here. So this place is basically a charter jurisdiction that runs on contract law. And the contract is with the United States. And that contract is called the Covenant. And it is written as a contract. And the terms of that contract is that the United States gets a chunk of land for basically a 100-year lease, and in exchange, everybody here gets to be a citizen. Everybody here, they have to establish a government and a constitution for themselves. But not all of the U.S. Constitution applies here, only the pieces that they define in the contract. The highest court of the land is the U.S. Supreme Court. We are not part of the U.S. Customs territory. When they first started, they had their own immigration. The U.S. government took that away. That was part of the terms of the covenant, as if they messed it up, they could take it away. They have their own tax authority, and so anyone living here is not liable to the IRS. So I just pay my taxes to the local authorities. And there's a series of other things, but it's a unique jurisdiction that is, for all intents and purposes, what folks would refer to as Ancapistan, a charter jurisdiction run on contract law that's under the military protection of the United States.
What is the tax rate there?
So our system, by the covenant, it has to mirror the U.S. system, but they have total freedom to be able to create tax rebates or abatements. So just if you're just a standard person, the standard rebate is 50%. So whatever you paid to no state tax, whatever you paid to the IRS in the U.S., if you would have been living here making that same amount, you would have paid half. That's just the standard individual. But there are lots of programs here that are incentive programs whereby there are literally people here, white Americans from the mainland. One of them owns a hotel, one owns some gaming businesses, one owns an airline, where they were able to negotiate with the government. The government has the power, and they have no taxes, zero taxes on their businesses or personal for 25 years each.
Wow.
Zero taxes on their hotel, on their airline, on their personal income tax, on anything.
Yeah, and from what I also hear, they're not subject to things like minimum wage laws and other crazy federal regulations.
They do. They weren't. But there was a big scandal in the 90s. It was the Tom DeLay scandal with the Abramoff and all of that, where the garment factories were here taking advantage of all of that. And the minimum wage here was like $2. But so there was a big scandal, and the government basically forced them. Part of the terms of the covenant is if they act in egregious ways, the government can force certain things. So they did force federal minimum wage on the territory here, or the Commonwealth, I should say. So so the minimum wage here is the federal minimum wage of $7 and whatever.
So, so what's also maybe, things like healthcare. I mean, all those horrible healthcare regulations and stuff like that. You got pretty good healthcare there, or is it still as bad as it is in the USA?
Well, there's not much health. We have one hospital and a few clinics.
Yeah.
Right. You definitely don't want to have any sort of serious problem or any chronic debilitating thing that you need cancer or anything like that. You certainly don't want to get that living here. That's not what you want. Breaks and scrapes. And actually, my daughter's been running a bit of a fever, and my wife just took her to the emergency room, and that's fine. Those things are fine. But anything serious, no, you definitely don't want to be. You don't want to be here. Go somewhere else. But luckily, we're close enough in Asia. So like, my wife needed a tooth implant, so she went up to Korea, took a day trip up to Korea a few times and got a tooth implant, and it was cheaper than you would be in the States. Or like a lot of the people here go to Philippines.
Yeah, well, healthcare is such a disaster in America. Yeah, so it sounds like it's a paradise. I don't know what made you pick it, but you went there right when all the coronavirus nonsense hit the fan.
That's why I picked it.
Yeah.
That's why I picked it, because it didn't go crazy here at all.
Yeah, I don't know if it's, although it doesn't sound like it's that easy to get there, is it? Or
yeah, you could do like Korea to here, or Tokyo to here. Yeah, so you do like any major airport in the US to Korea, and then you take the flight from Korea to here, or Tokyo, or Guam. You could do the same thing.
Okay, yeah, Guam, yeah. Guam seems like it's a special case. It's near there, but it's not part of that area. So I just wondered what up with that. Yeah, so
yeah, separate. Yeah, it's a separate jurisdiction completely. So it's the southernmost island, and then all the northern islands in the archipelago are the Northern Mariana Islands.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Do you have anything else to say, for example, about Roman Sterling Off, or Roman Storm, or Samurai Wallet, or Ian Freeman? Some other crypto case?
Well, Ian is another friend of mine, right? When I lived in New Hampshire, I used to, on a monthly basis, go and host Free Talk Live with Ian and Mark up there. And I was well aware of the things that Ian was doing in terms of the crypto ATMs. Everybody in New Hampshire was. Everybody knew like Keen and the stuff that they were doing with their church and everything. And I had used them. I had used those ATMs. I knew where they were. And Ian and I had a conversation in 2018. The first time that he got a letter from FinCEN saying, we're going to come after you for these ATMs. And even our corporate attorney put together a little package for him saying, yeah, there's a real risk here of operating as a money service business, unregistered money service business. And I sent it over to him. We took the time because I was concerned and worried about him. My attorney, the attorney for our company, Cointext, we'd spent a lot of time making sure that we were compliant, and a lot of money. And so it was something that I've remained vigilant and paranoid about, and it's why I've been able to work in the system. And I love Ian. Again, another, like, he's a rabble rouser, and he's eccentric in his own ways, but he was only ever kind and generous to me, and I think most people who knew him personally would say the same. Again, we didn't agree on everything, but I do view him as a principled person, and someone with a lot of love in his heart for others, and who helped a lot of people. I know he donated and helped out a lot of people when they were in trouble, because he did have means. But he really kind of shrugged it off when I told him. And I think that some of that is just because, and when I shared the stuff from our attorney as well, and I think some of that is just because, part of his whole thing is being confrontational toward the government. And, this is sort of a cross that he's bearing. I think that I think it'll turn out that he was just ahead of his time. But I do pray for him, and I wish him the best. And I remain to say he is my friend. I consider him a friend. So, that's where that's at.
Yeah. So you actually left the Free State Project, didn't you? Or you were living in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I didn't really go out there to be a part of the Free State Project. I was obviously like associated with them because I had a crypto business, and I'm a libertarian, and they're my friends. But it was actually at that Anarchapulco in 2017 was when I first met Ian Freeman. And I also met Matt. Oh, why am I forgetting his last name right now? He was the president or the executive director of the Free State Project at that time. And they both actually invited me, and it was they invited me out to speak at PorcFest that year, and then again at Liberty Forum. And it was sort of that welcoming that made me move with my family. But when we had our second child, we moved back to California to be with closer to the family. And So that's why we left. Otherwise, I think we would have stuck around. We had a lot of friends there. I did like the community, and my wife didn't like the winters, but I was cool with it. And I got a lot of work done there. It was, it's a beautiful place, and I think it's a great place to raise children. I don't know the status of the Free State Project now and how that community is now, but I have so many friends there, so many friends, and I loved my time there, to be honest.
I'm trying to remember who would have been who that Matt would have been, but yeah, it's unfortunate you moved back to California though. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's where my that was the trade-off I was making, was to let my, mom be around her grandkids and all those. Those are the kinds of trade-offs that you make. But once COVID kicked in and they started those lockdowns.
That's the hardest part. Yeah. The whole not being near the family. Yeah. Well, you said you had about an hour, so I don't think there's anything left to say. You got anything else you want to say before we go?
No, that's it. I mean, thank you for this conversation. I look forward to sharing it, because I think it's a story that people need to know, and they need to understand the context. And one thing that I will say is, one of the things that I said years ago in saying that I knew Ross would be free was that, and again, with the Nelson Mandela part, I don't know if you've seen his recent speeches that he's given since he's been out, but man, is he dynamic. Yeah. Man, is he dynamic and also principled, and also you could tell filled with love, and just you can really feel that this is a good man. He's been tempered by what happened to him, and he's remained a good man. He's grown into something strong. And I do think that right now, I think there was just a tweet from him saying that he's going to stop talking and for a while and go and just enjoy being free. And he's got his wife and his family. And I just think he's I hope that he doesn't, I know that he will, but I hope sooner than later, but like, he's exactly, I think, what we need to maybe take whatever we're calling the libertarian space and the crypto space. He's got the gravitas to take it into a good place. And so I hope that he does. I hope it's a cross to bear, but I hope that people will support him in bearing that cross, because we're going to need him. We're going to need him.
Yeah, I hope so too. If he's a genuinely good, I should have asked you too. Any opinions on the man in Argentina?
Malay?
Yes.
Oh man, he's a hard one. He's a hard one. I think he's got a lot of growing into himself to do. It shows that when things get bad enough, people will kind of take anything. I mean, I think that there's no doubt that he has made some good changes. There's no doubt. But with Argentina at the time that he took over, there was nowhere to go but up. It would have been hard to do anything worse, right? And sometimes crises are good. Sometimes crises are good for that. Hopefully he's I don't know too much about, I don't follow his administration deeply. But hopefully he is preparing the groundwork for a movement of more people to be able to come through and grow on it. Because otherwise, if he's just a solitary person, I think that his reforms will be, as soon as he's out of office, I think that his reforms will probably just be completely reversed. Right. So I hope that he's preparing a larger movement.
I think he is, but yeah, but I've done 85 shows about him. So anyway, where can we find you out there? Where can we find you out there on the internet, on the interwebs, Vin?
On the interwebs, at Cyprianus, Cyprianus on Twitter. I mean, besides that, I'm pretty difficult to find. But if there's anything interesting, I definitely post it up on my X.
Yeah, I've been wondering. Yeah, I just figured I'd get you on here because you seem like you're a pretty interesting guy. It was so easy, and got you on here within a day, and I love that kind of turnaround. It's I mean, there's so many people they want to go back and forth for like a month, and But anyway, well, please like this video show, subscribe to the channel, go buy my novel Escape from the Village, check out my Substack, and you can give me money at buymeacoffee.com. Thank you, Vin Armani. I'm Chris Baker. We're out. Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.